Everyone says how horrible it will be to renovate or build your house. We're here to say it doesn't have to be that way. Join 3 seasoned architects as they interview homeowners who recently completed a large project and ask them one simple question. What do you know now that you wish you knew before you started? Welcome to Home, the Second Story podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a snack-size episode of Home, the Second Story. I'm Marilyn from Runcible Studios.
I'm Sherry with Springhouse Architects.
And I'm Taylor from TPD Architect.
And today we are talking about something that everyone wants to know more about, contract structures.
Boo.
Boo. No, this will
Not
be
fun.
cool. This will be cool. Okay, I know. Don't change the dial, everybody. This is something that we hear from our clients all the time, is something that there's a lot of mystery around. What kind of contract do you set up? That kind of thing. So we're going to try something. So I used to be a contractor, a builder. I will present that side, and then, from that perspective. And Sherry and Taylor are going to talk about more from the architect side. We're going to try that, see how it works.
So I think the terminology that gets used, at least in our neck of the woods in Alabama the most often, and I think it's the AIA terminology, is cost plus contract or stipulated sum. Stipulated sum, it sounds terrible. Like it's such it's a lot of syllables.
We call it fixed price. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it stipulated sum. So really the difference is, are you getting a contract from your contractor that has a number, and that number is the cost of what it costs to build that project? A cost plus contract essentially says the contractor is going to invoice you for the cost of the materials plus their markup. And their markup might include different things. Some people, we see sort of that general conditions broken out different ways. Their markup might include overhead and profit and maybe pure profit. There's all sorts of ways that different contractors do that markup, but it is essentially the cost of the materials and the labor plus the markup associated with it. And so that's where you get the cost plus, and then the stipulated sum, it is a fixed fee.
Oftentimes people will call the cost plus, they'll call it time and materials, because you're paying for the time and you're paying for the materials. And side note, you should not be paying markup on the contractor's labor.
Right.
The question we get from our clients, the homeowners, is which one's better? Right? And the reason there have been 2 around forever is that it depends. It depends on your project. It really, I try to explain it as it depends on your tolerance for unknowns.
It's a great way to put it.
A fixed price, theoretically, the builder will put more price in there to cover everything, because they can't come back to you and say, oh, lumber went up, or oh, I didn't bid this out correctly and it costs more. So they're on the hook to cover those things that are over, but then they also kind of get a windfall when it's under. And with good contractors that set good pricing, it all is kind of even. So cost plus, when the contractor, their percentage that they put on there is truly only their profit, it should be. And then they have line items within the contract that actually pays for the work that they do, which some people don't know to look for and to add all of those pieces up, because that's one of the things that can swing between different contractors, that can swing the price.
We'd see it a little bit differently, that markup, depending on the contractor, might include different things. They may have a markup that includes their profit and their overhead for the project.
Mm-hmm.
Some might have a pure profit markup. And so we encourage people, when they are looking and they're comparing contractors, not just to look at that pure number, but to ask what's included in that number, because
good.
the difference in percentage, it may not be an apples to apples comparison from somebody who's at 12% and somebody who's in 18%. There may be
Yes.
different things that are included in that. And so you kind of, it's not just a like, oh, he's cheaper. That's not the way necessarily that works.
So I was a construction estimator and a project manager at a general contractor building custom homes. And that's what I did before I was an architect. And the way we understood it on the contracting side was it's about who is taking the risk. So if in the time and materials or cost plus, the owner is taking the risk. So therefore the owner gets the rewards. If lumber prices go down, the owner reaps the rewards of that, right? They don't have to pay the higher lumber costs. If it goes up, that's the risk they're taking. In a fixed price, the builder is taking the risk. So the builder gets the reward. If it's higher, they get penalized. If it's lower, they get to keep the difference. And so there's which contract structure is right often comes down to risk tolerance of the owner, what their personality is, what feels right. When I used to have these conversations with owners and they would say, which one do you do? And I would say, well, there's different reasons why we choose different structures, but it has a lot to do with personality. The other thing that it has to do with is the type of project. So in a renovation, especially complex renovation, you are not going to get a fixed price. There are too many unknowns. You can certainly fix the price for certain aspects. And this is where we get into kind of a hybrid contract where you would fix certain prices, but then leave other things as allowances. So the allowance is the part that inside the contract, we fix the price for the things we know, and we've left allowances for the things we don't know. We actually don't know what the framing is going to cost yet because we don't know what it's going to be like when we open up the wall. So we're going to put a number here that we're going to hold, but it's an allowance. And that allowance acts like a mini time and materials inside a fixed price contract.
And a lot of times those allowances are things that are in the homeowner's control, right? Like they choose their tile, they choose their appliances. A lot of times I see that's in our world, that's what the allowances are.
As a builder, I wished it was the opposite. I wish they would pick out all their dang tile because that is very easy to pick out. It is impossible for me to see in the walls. So I always wished as a builder that it was the opposite. On a renovation, let me put allowances in for the things I don't know until I'm into it. You can fix all that other stuff. You just got to make the decisions.
There's two other differences that I want to highlight. And one is that there's a difference in what you see as an owner in your invoice in a cost plus versus a fixed fee. So if you're getting a time and materials or a cost plus invoice, you will generally, it's not, at least with the contractors we work with, it's not totally wild, wild west. There's generally a control estimate. So they've gone through the drawings and provided an estimate of what those things will cost with the understanding that it might not cost that. And so they're sort of, they're gauging progress based on that control estimate. It's not a guarantee. It's not a fixed sum, but it gives you a way to kind of gauge a budget. So it's a way to sort of begin to estimate things. And estimate is the most important word in that whole phrase.
Can I add something about control estimates real quick? Control estimates, depending on your state, are required by law. Yeah. By consumer protection law, not construction stuff, not architecture stuff, by consumer protection. So I have seen contractors and architects and owners get burned by this in various ways. So a control estimate is required often by state law, by consumer protection law for homes. So that's just something to keep in mind.
You're not just getting like an unknown if you take on a cost plus project. You should have some sense of a general estimate of what the project is going to cost. When you get an invoice, you will get all of the receipts, or your architect or whomever is reviewing, your owner's rep or whomever is reviewing, you are going to get all of the receipts from all of the items that were billed in that invoice. So that means the Home Depot invoices, it means the lighting the lighting invoices, it means the receipts from the mason and all of those things. If you are getting a fixed fee contract, you are only getting that invoice. and you are getting a percentage of the fee that has been billed up to that point. So it's like a control estimate, except those costs are hard. So you'll see our progress. We've, if the fee is $10,000 for lumber, we've billed $8,000 of that to date. So you're going to see different things on your invoices as an owner. We, and I think all of us, offer services during construction where we review those pay applications, those invoices from the contractors, and
Right.
approve them prior to the owners paying those. So if you want your architect or your owner's rep to do that, there is a sort of tried and true process that goes along with reviewing those invoices and maybe all of those receipts as well. So what you want to sort of parse through as an owner when you are getting that invoice from your contractor, and what is your tolerance for like a big envelope versus like 2 pages, is something you should be thinking about too.
Something you talked about, Marilyn, was the tolerance of risk on the homeowner side. Here in Ohio, with the contractors we work with, it seems like we know which contractors do fixed price and which contractors do cost plus.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of room for the homeowner to choose that, aside from choosing which contractor. So that's something when you have initial conversation, when homeowners have initial conversations with contractors, they should ask what structure they use. And if they're open to looking at a different structure, if you don't like that structure. We have a couple that are open to, talking about what works best for the homeowner, but most of them just say we do cost plus. And in the projects that we do that are big custom home projects, those are always cost plus. I don't know a contractor that picks that up as a fixed cost.
I'm just going to utter 2 words and let y'all respond. Change orders.
Literally the words I was just going to say. Taylor, I was
I
just
think
going to
that's
say,
a whole
let's
nother
talk
topic.
change orders.
Oh, are we
It is
talking
a whole
about
other
that?
topic. So we'll give the 1 minute overview. So in a cost plus or time and materials contract, there are no change orders.
Ding, 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 ding.
The contractor is working as directed. There's no change orders. In a fixed price, there's a change order. And that means that somebody has ordered a change in the project. That could be driven by something that we have no control over, like the tile was not available. We had to pick another one, and this one is 20% more expensive. So the contractor is owed 20% more on the tile. It could be something that's directed by the owner because they changed their mind. It could be something that the contractor is asking for. So back when I used to do this, and I would keep a change order log, and I suggest that as an architect you do it, as a homeowner you do it, and keep a change order log. Who asked for the change orders? Because 9 times out of 10, the memory of like, oh my gosh, this project cost so much. There were all these change orders, blah, blah, blah. And you look back and the owner instigated 90% of them because they wanted to change their mind. By the way, that's totally fine.
And change orders aren't necessarily bad. Like everybody thinks change orders are like the kiss of death.
Or the name of the contractor's boat.
They're not. They're just not. And I would say, I think one of the questions to ask, and I don't know how contractors in y'all's necks of the woods do this, but if you are doing a fixed fee project, ask your contractor if there is an additional fee on a change order. That's a question to ask. Some contractors will just put it at their regular markup and have that be the case. There may be some that add an extra fee to the change order. So ask that question when you are talking to contractors.
I've never heard of that. So in all the places I've worked, that has not been a thing. So that's really good to ask.
Yeah, it's written in our contracts how they charge for change orders.
Oh, that's cool. We could do a whole other episode on change orders.
I also want to just point out from the contractor's perspective that none of these things are bad or have any sort of value of like, as a homeowner, you are allowed to ask whatever questions you want. This is not an adversarial relationship. It is not bad to do a cost plus or bad to do a fixed price or bad to have a change order. No, it's just within the course of normal, events of a project. And I would much rather back when I was contracting, and certainly now as an architect, which I've been a lot longer than I was a contractor, I would much rather have a homeowner asking questions about the things they don't know. We sometimes forget. Our heads are in this. We've been doing this for 20 plus years. We rattle off these words like change order or pay app or, whatever, all these things. It is okay to ask. It is okay to not know. This is not your profession as a homeowner. It is 1000%. And it is okay not to know. And it is your money. You are allowed to ask where it's going. Now, I will ask that you should listen when the experts are telling you where, if you come to the job site and you say, well, you charged me for this crew for 8 hours, but I saw them taking a break for half an hour. And I'm like, it was 105 degrees today. Right. You're lucky they were even on the job site. Mm-hmm. So there is a give and take. You have to understand, especially if you haven't been around manual labor or used to understanding these processes, understand that you don't know that and that you're relying on competent professionals to help guide you. So yes, ask the questions about the dollars, but do not nickel and dime to the point where you become a pain in the ass and then you get charged more later and you don't even know it. So that's my advice.
Good advice.
Yeah, the advice, it's kind of counterintuitive. It's like if you have that personality and you want to nickel and dime and keep track of hours, you probably should do a fixed fee. Yes. But then that person probably wants to be able to keep track of everything. And so they're going to naturally gravitate to a cost plus. It's a difficult decision because there are pluses and minuses on both sides for every party.
I will say that regardless of what kind of contract you select or what type of contractor your contractor wants to use or suggests you use, all of those things, the choice is certainly there. The most important thing you can do is give them the most information possible.
Hear, hear.
At the outset of a project. So whether that is a detailed set of drawings, specifications, whatever that is, it doesn't matter whether it's a fixed fee or a cost plus, that will do nothing but benefit the project. Nothing. A sketch on a napkin is never going to yield accurate pricing and thus will never yield a contract that gives you a fixed price. The more information in whatever form you can give that contractor will yield a better contract regardless of the structure of that contract.
That's a mic drop.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Home the Second Story for a quick snack. Questions for us or interested in being a guest on the podcast, reach out at admin@htsspodcast.com. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Home, the Second Story podcast. Feel free to share this episode with a friend. Contact information for all three of our architects are in our show notes. And don't miss future episodes. Follow or subscribe to our show for free in Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now.